everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you guys? I hope you guys still safe and still healthy. Today, our group from Group 3 will be represent our presentation called Feminism and Marxism in Movies. This group contain Anissa Pajriani, Anja Rahmandani, Arita Azizilian, Elsa Febriana, and myself, Sela Listia Putri. And to begin our presentation, we will explain what is feminism and what is movie. So let's jump to the next slide. So, what is feminism? Well, mostly, all of you will answer these questions by the right answer. Well, I will explain it to you guys. According to Maurice, feminism is a perspective that seeks to eliminate the subordination, oppression, inequalities, and injustice women suffer because of their sex. According to Dewi in her book, Theory into Practice, An Introduction to Literary Criticism, 3rd edition, she argued that, in feminism, the problem that happened in society is when a female does not have the same equality as males, and they have so many struggles in society. So this is the main problem that feminism tried to fight. That is why feminism is one of the most important aspects in literature. Because there was a time when a woman writer cannot express their own feelings in writing, and they cannot publish their work by their own name. So they have to change the name as a male name, so the society can accept the work. As we can see, this is the representation of social life. Well, as you can see, women have been struggling in the society since many years ago. And it is reflected in many literary works such as novel, short stories, poetry, movies, and in many other works. So you might be wondering what is movies? Well, according to Hornby, movie means a series of moving picture recorded with sound that tells a story. Obviously. And they usually shown at cinema or movie. So you might be also wondering what is the relationship between these two. Well, we will go into that answer, but before that I will explain it to you about 3 phases of feminism. So we move into the next slide. The first phase of feminism called the feminine phase. It is happened in 1840 till 1880. In this first phase, female writers employed the literary tradition established by men in making their work. They are beware to avoid and not using offensive language or subject matter. Novelists such as Charlotte Bronte wrote in the forms and style of recognized writers, and mostly all of them were male. So, the second wave of feminism called the feminist phase. It is happened in 1880 till 1920. In the second phase, women moved together to the higher stage. They protested their lack of rights in society and worked to secure them against it. In literary world, male writers usually describe women unfairly. So, feminism tried to fight that thing. The last phase of feminism called the female phase. It is happened in 1920 till today. In this third phase, women's struggles are more focused on women's freedom to work as in the field of art and writing. Women writers focus on their freedom to write a work and fight for their right to be able to have the same positions as male writers. And that's the end of the explanation about the 3 waves of feminism. So, now it is time to answer your previous questions about what is the relationship between movies and feminism. Well, according to Annikis Malik in her book And the Mirror Cracked, Feminist Cinema and Film Theory, in 1998, feminist movie was influenced by the second wave of feminism and also by the women's studies in the 1980s and 1970s. Initially, in the United States in the early 1970s, feminist film theory was generally based on sociological theory and focused on the function of female characters in film narratives or genres. You might be wondering what is the relationship between the things that I already explained in the previous slide. Well, from that explanation, we can conclude that movies despite social or fiction life. Therefore, relationship between films and feminists are very close because of the portrayal of women are often made as the main theme in film. So there's a lot of movies talk about feminism and have theme about women. So that is the relationship between movies and feminism. So, feminist themed film named Little Woman.
This is a movie that our group chose to be an example of feminist theory. Little Woman, a movie directed by Greta Gerwig. This movie is an adaptation of the classic novel in 1869 entitled Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. Little Woman was nominated for an Oscar 2020 in 6 categories, including Best Movie. In the next slide, Little Woman tells the life of four sisters in socializing with the environment, chasing dreams, and their relationship with the opposite sex. They are Jo, Meg, Amy, and Beth March. The setting of time in this movie was taken in the 19th century, or after the Civil War in the United States. In the next slide, there is an irony that greets during watching Little Woman, especially when realized problems of women in those days not much different from today. At the time, it was still forbidden for women to speak. It was strange to see a woman cut her hair short, even damned for women who decide to be single all their lives. But that's all that was actually done by Jo March, the main character in this movie, Little Woman. She doesn't care about the gender standards attached to her. She feels ashamed of the portrayal of the woman of her time. She was reluctant to break her ends and trapped in marriage. Her dream is big, and the road is still long. Jo left Massachusetts, United States, to try her fortune in New York. Jo's independent, stubborn, persistent, and intelligent nature is able to keep her afloat despite being rejected several times by the publisher. Armed with pen, ink, paper, and thousands of words as a weapon, Jo slowly breaks boundaries and realizes her dream as a writer. In the next slide, however, that's not all that makes her worthy of inspiration. Jo's relationship with her family has become an inseparable important aspect. She has an older sister named Meg, then a younger sister named Beth, and a second younger sister, Amy. When they were young, until they were adults, they were always together. Her fourth egg, which is not so far apart, makes these four siblings look more like a gang than siblings. Jo always prioritized his family. She went to reach her dream after Meg was married, and Amy went to Europe. Likewise, when her three siblings have a problem, Jo can focus on her own problems only when her three siblings have solved their problems. In the next slide, Jo's close relationship with her sister show another side of Jo, who is loving, gentle, and caring. She becomes the glue, support, and protector of her family. Jo's character in this movie has an important role in showing that people's views about women at the time were wrong. By achieving her ideals as a writer, she pointed out that there was gender equality between man and woman at the time. Women and men can both achieve their goals, not stop just because they are born to the values created by the society through the views of this society.
In this part, we are going to discuss about Marxism. According to Ian H. Burchell, Marxism is a body of ideas which sees all human history as the history of class struggle. In particular, it is concerned to analyze the dynamics and contradictions of the capitalist system, and to show how the working class has the historical potential to overthrow capitalism and establish a classless, socialist society. So, it can conclude that Marxism stands or falls by its ability to interpret existing society and to mobilize men and women to change it. Move to the next slide. We are discuss about the concept of Marxism that found by Karl Marx. Karl Heinrich Marx was born in the Trier in the Kingdom of Prussia on the 5th of May 1818 and died on the 14th of March in 1883. He was a philosopher and economist who is most famous for the creation, together with Friedrich Engels, of the touch of Marxism and for the improvement of the idea of class struggle. He wrote that constant class struggle leads inevitably to the proletarian revolution, in which the proletarian class will win and a non-class society will spread. In the next slide, there are 6 stages in developing Marxism according to Karl Marx. These 6 stages include primitive communism, imperialism, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and communism. The first stage is primitive communism. In primitive communism, men performed the same economic function. They worked together in order to survive. There was no private property and there were no classes. Eventually, the most successful hunter-gatherers gained power and control over the others. The second stage is imperialism. In imperialism, the strongman ruled. He began by owning all the land, but when threatened by outsiders, he would grant land to others in return for military services. A new land-owning aristocracy was therefore created. Stage 3: Feudalism. In feudalism, land was owned by the aristocracy, who exploited the peasantry who worked it. There was a surplus of food which the aristocracy sold to others, creating a class of merchants and capitalists who wanted to share political power. Stage 4: Capitalism. In capitalism, the wealthy merchant and factory owners, which is bourgeois, obtained political power and exploited the workers, which is proletariat. As the proletariat became politically aware, they would rise up and overthrow the bourgeois government. Stage 5: Socialism. In socialism, there would be a dictatorship of the proletariat as workers. Organizations redistributed food, goods, and services fairly according to need, and profits were shared by all. The middle classes would come to understand that equality was superior to private ownership. The last stage is communism. In communism, everyone would join together for the common good. Money and government would no longer be needed, and society would be classless. As all countries reached this stage, the world would become stateless, and competition and wars would cease. However, Marxism has influenced a lot of films. The spectator faces Marxist problems such as proletariat conditions, bourgeois dominance, the evolving technology and its connection to society, and revolution. Every problem is only a signal of the advance of the communist era, which consists of final justice on earth.
Okay, we'll go to the Harriet movie. In Harriet movie, there are 4 main characters named Cynthia Erivo as a Harriet Tubman. Next is Leslie Odom as a William Steele. And then Janelle Monáe as a Mary Buchanan. Last is Joe Allen as a Gideon Brooks. Next, we go to the synopsis of Harriet movie. This is the outline synopsis. Harriet is a movie that tells the story of a woman named Minty, who after being free, she changed her name to Harriet, who fights for freedom from the slavery in the Gideon Brothers family. In this film, there are differences in social class between white people and black people. All black people are slaves to white people, and it is certainly difficult to get freedom for black people, but with perseverance and obedient faith, Minty was able to free more than 70 slaves through the Underground Railroad, and she fight over 750 more slaves after she got position as a slave savior. Minty first worked at the brothers' plantation alongside her family members that include her husband, John Tubman. Different with Minty, John is a freedman on paper but not quite in practice in Precis South. Minty was having a hard time. Her sister had been sold to another employer. She was blamed for the death of Gideon Brothers' father. Minty is a devout and religious person. She always prayed and always received sight from her prayers. So Minty intends to escape slavery and get faith from her sight and prayers. Minty ran and jumped into the river. Minty is presumed drowned but successfully make it to Philadelphia Village via the Underground Railroad, assisted by Quakers, and other abolitionists. In Philadelphia Village, she met Mary Buchanan, the fashionable daughter from freed slave who has born free, and she has a boarding house proprietor. And there, Minty met William Steele, an abolitionist and writer who helped Minty become a freedman, and has a new friend named called Harriet Tubman. After a few months in Philadelphia, Harriet decided to go back for John, but in there, Harriet found John has remarried and makes Harry hurt because John expecting a baby from his new wife. Now Harriet just focused on free her family, and her other sister refused to leave her two children. So the sister won't join Harriet for free. Harriet continues to return, guiding dozens of slaves to freedom as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. And a myth begins to grow about the person responsible, who is dubbed Moses. Harriet has another name Moses because she led other slaves to become a freedman. An epilogue states the personally freed more than 70 slaves on the Underground Railroad and returned as a Union spy during the Civil War, leading 150 black soldiers who freed over 750 slaves. So that is a synopsis of Harriet movie.
Okay, after the previous explanation, we can conclude that first, movie is a moving picture with audio that tells a story. There are some elements in the movie such as plot, conflict, character, dialogue, visual and audio, and so on. Next point is movie have several themes like feminist and Marxist. So it means like in a movie it tends to show us the condition or situation that happen through the character in the movie. That condition can be said as feminist and Marxist. And then both of these themes is described as certain struggle with society. As in A Little Woman movie, it shows that the main character have to struggle because of their gender, while in Harriet movie is portrayed the struggle of black people, which are seen as slave for white people.
Eventually, that is the end of our presentation for today about feminism and Marxism in movies. Hopefully, this presentation can help you to understand about movies, Marxism, and feminism, and also the relationship between those three things. Well, thank you so much for your attention. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please stay at home and wash your hand. Well, sayonara!